Hello, welcome to Angela's SEL Storytime. SEL, or Social Emotional Learning, is all about resilience, perseverance, connection, a focus on relationships, and knowing yourself as an educator. SEL is that overarching umbrella for everything that successful education is. It's our foundation as teachers, and I'll attempt at illustrating for you why it's our foundation when teaching academics. And hopefully you'll be able to make the connection as to why we're using Thrively to help us teach SEL. Today I'd like to talk to you about connection, how stories matter, and how we can bridge the gaps with our students' academics and their SEL, as well as the gaps that we have as adult learners in this life, which I always say is a classroom for us all, teacher or not. As teachers, we tend to focus on skill and knowledge when we think of teaching. But if we as teachers don't tap into cultural competence and emotional intelligence in regards to our students, by getting to know our students, their stories, and where they're coming from, we're never going to get to the skill and knowledge because we've got to get to the cultural competence and emotional intelligence first. And that is social emotional learning. It's fully knowing your students' humanity and the richness of their identities. But it starts with you as a teacher. You've got to matter enough to yourself. You've got to love yourself. And that's because constructive engagement with others depends on a healthy relationship with ourselves. Then you can advocate for your students, their community, and teach them how to advocate for themselves and others. And that's when school culture improves. And that's the way to a more compassionate world. And that's where you see the power of a teacher. Our California ELA/ELD framework, Chapter 9, Access and Equity especially, elaborates for us that our charge as educators is to acknowledge all cultural and linguistic contexts in which students live and learn. We seek to understand the relationship between our students' language, identity, and culture, and we must be aware of what students bring into our classrooms and shine a light on it for them by listening to their stories and looking for connection, because this all promotes positive relationships, therefore improving educational outcomes. So how do we do that? By teaching social emotional learning, social justice, teaching them about their identity, diversity, how to take action, about justice, and teaching tolerance. This all should be interwoven into your existing curriculum. It's a way of being in the classroom culture, using texts sensitive to and reflective of all the above that I've read, restorative circles, empathy-building activities, and creating safe and inclusive learning spaces. I am always amazed at what students can accomplish when they feel safe and loved. Research shows that just one positive relationship in early childhood leads to significantly better outcomes and builds resiliency within a person's life that they carry with them through adulthood. This positive relationship could definitely be, and quite often is, a teacher. The power of a teacher. This is my call to you all. It's crucial for us to be both empathetic and mindful of our students' situations and to be aware of whatever may be happening at home, because when we are, we have a greater impact on them, and that is SEL. And in the midst of the adversity that we see on a daily basis in our nation and around the world, especially now as we continue distance learning during this pandemic, which affects our students, our children, our own children, and ourselves as adults and educators, remember what a huge impact you have on this youth of our nation as a teacher. I hope that you would all embrace the idea that that it is your job not only to teach them, but to see the pure grace within them and to honor it and to point it out to them in case they didn't see it for themselves, because we can have a greater impact on them if we choose to see it and nurture it. And again, that is social emotional learning.